The year is 1937, the golden age of aviation, a time when pilots were modern heroes, pushing machines to their limits and humanity beyond its fears. In this age of daring flight and exploration, one woman stood above them all. Not because she was the first to try, but because she was determined to never stop trying. Her name was Amelia Mary Earhart. By the summer of 1937, Earhart had already conquered the skies. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, the first to cross the United States coast to coast, and one of the most recognisable figures on the planet. She had a plan, and that was to circle the globe along the equator, to be the first person, not just the first woman, to do so. But on July 2nd, 1937, somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished without a trace. No distress signal, no wreckage, no survivors. In the decades since, her disappearance has become one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. A puzzle of radio messages, shifting theories, and tantalising fragments that seem to lead everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. Was this a tragic accident, or was it something much more sinister? Welcome back to Nightmare Situations. If you like what you hear tonight, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. Now, let's get into it. Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24th, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas, a small town overlooking the Missouri River. From an early age, she defied expectations. While other girls were playing with dolls, Amelia climbed trees, built ramps, and dreamed about adventure. Her curiosity was endless. Her mother, Amy, encouraged her to follow her own path, which was actually quite rare at the time. But Amelia's childhood wasn't easy. Her father struggled with alcoholism, and her family moved frequently, chasing stability that never seemed to last. In 1917, while working as a nurse's aide during World War I, Amelia treated wounded soldiers that were returning from a battlefront. There, she first encountered the power and fragility of machines, and the human spirit that drove them. 2 years later, at an airshow in Long Beach, California, she took her flight as a passenger. This was the first time she had gone in the air. That 10-minute trip would change her life forever. She later wrote, "By the time I got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly." Soon after, she began flying lessons with Netta Snook, one of the only female flight instructors in the world at the time. Amelia bought her first plane, a bright yellow Kinner Airster. She nicknamed it the Canary. By 1922, she had set her first world record, the highest altitude reached by a woman pilot. This was 14,000 feet. But aviation wasn't her only challenge. She had to fight for recognition, for funding, and for respect in a male-dominated world. She took on jobs as a teacher, a social worker, and a writer to fund her flights. Then, in 1928, her life changed overnight. Amelia was chosen to be the first woman to cross the Atlantic by aeroplane, though she was still a passenger, not the pilot. Still, when the flight landed in Wales, reporters surrounded her. Her fame exploded overnight. But Amelia didn't want to be remembered as a passenger. She wanted to be remembered as the pilot. And 4 years later, she would do just that, becoming the first woman to fly non-stop across the Atlantic. Her flight from Newfoundland to Ireland in 1932 lasted nearly 15 grueling hours, filled with ice, storms, and exhaustion. When she landed safely, she had made history. Amelia Earhart became a symbol of courage, not just for women, but for anyone who dared to dream. And then, by 1937, Amelia was ready for the ultimate test. A flight around the world following the equator, covering nearly 29,000 miles. Her aircraft, a sleek twin-engine Lockheed Electra 10E, was custom built for the journey. It was fast, efficient, and packed with cutting-edge navigation tools, including long-range radios. Her navigator, Fred Noonan, was one of the best. He had mapped routes for Pan American Airways, and he was skilled in celestial navigation, essentially for flying over thousands of miles of open ocean. Their first attempt, in March 1937, flying westward from California, ended abruptly when a tyre blew during takeoff in Hawaii, damaging Electra's undercarriage, but Amelia refused to give up. After the repairs, she launched a second attempt on June 1st, this time flying eastward from Oakland, California. The journey took her across South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, each stop drawing massive crowds. The world followed her progress through newsreels and radio updates. By June 29th, Amelia and Noonan had reached Lee, New Guinea. Just over 7,000 miles left to go. The next leg would take them to Howland Island, a tiny patch of land in the middle of the Pacific. This was the most dangerous part of the journey. 2,500 miles of ocean with almost no margin for error. The US Coast Guard stationed themselves near Howland to assist with navigation and maintain radio contact. On the morning of July 2nd, 1937, at 10 a.m. local time, Earhart and Noonan took off from Lae. Their plane carried about 1,100 gallons of fuel, enough to roughly fly for 20 hours. As they neared their destination, the communication became sporadic. The operators heard Amelia's voice several times, sometimes faint and sometimes clear. At 7:42 a.m. Highland time, she transmitted this message. "We must be on you, but we cannot see you. Gas is running low." 10 minutes later, another message. "We are on the line, 157-337. We'll repeat this message. We will repeat this message." Then, silence. No further transmissions were received. The Coast Guard tried to reach them repeatedly, but there was no response. For days, ships and aircraft combed the area. Over 250,000 square miles of ocean, but found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no sign of life. It was as if Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had simply disappeared into the sky. The US government then launched one of the largest search operations in naval history. This was approved by President Franklin Roosevelt himself. After weeks of searching the ocean, nothing was found. Soon, the theories began to multiply. The most widely accepted explanation is the crash and sink theory. According to this version, Earhart likely miscalculated her positions, failed to find Howland, and ran out of fuel, crashing into the Pacific somewhere nearby. The ocean in that region plunges to depths of 17,000 feet, easily enough to conceal a wreckage for nearly a century. But then evidence for other theories began to emerge. In 1940, a British colonel officer discovered partial human remains on Nikamuro Island, then called the Gardner Islands. This is roughly 350 miles south of Howland. Near the bones were a woman's shoe, a sextant box, and a fragment of what appeared to be an aeroplane. The bones were then sent to Fiji for examination, where they were recorded as belonging to a stocky male. However, in 2018, a forensic re-evaluation using the original measurements suggested that the remains were more likely to be female than male, and the size was consistent with Earhart. Further expeditions to the island have since uncovered fragments of aluminium consistent with the Electra's construction, and even glass that may have come from the aircraft window. Still, nothing definitive has ever been found. Another, more controversial theory is that Earhart was captured by the Japanese military after being forced to land in the Marshall Islands, which was controlled by Japan at the time. Some islanders later claimed to have seen a woman and a man, possibly Earhart and Noonan, taken into custody. A few even reported seeing a crash landing or a plane being loaded onto a ship. Declassified documents and an old photograph have been cited as evidence, though many experts believe the photo was misidentified and taken years before Earhart's flight. Then there are the survival theories. One rumour claims that Amelia lived out the rest of her life with a new identity. A woman named Irene Bolam, a New Jersey banker who denied the accusation in the 1970s. Others suggest the US government may have recruited Earhart for an intelligence mission and that her disappearance was a cover-up. Each theory offers tantalising details, but none provide proof. Nearly 90 years later, the Pacific still guards its secrets. Somewhere beneath the waves, perhaps within sight of Highland Island, lies the answer to what happened on the morning of 1937. Until it's found, the disappearance of Amelia Earhart will remain one of the greatest mysteries of our time, a haunting reminder that even the brightest stars can vanish into the unknown. So what do you think happened? Let me know down in the comments. You've been watching Nightmare Situations. If you enjoyed our story tonight, then don't forget to subscribe. And remember, sometimes reality is more terrifying than any nightmare. Thank you for watching.